folks, and welcome back to the Rangers Roundup, now available in podcast form, because Lord knows if there's one thing that the internet's been absolutely clamouring for, it's another tone-faced fat dumpling with a Rangers podcast. I resemble that remark, so in the words of transfer guru Fabrizio Romano, here we go. Plenty to get through today as we find ourselves standing on the precipice of another season of top-flight Scottish football, a veritable cliff edge if our pre-season exploits are anything to go by. It could be a very apt turn of phrase as Philippe Clement looks to have a mountain to climb this season if major additions aren't made over the next month. Plenty to talk about with Rangers today, of course. That's one thing with Rangers, you've always got something to talk about. They always give us plenty to moan about. Unfortunately, over the recent decade or so, problems of course with the Copeland Road stand and the steel being delayed coming over from Asia. We're still really in limbo with that in terms of how long we're going to be away from Ibrox. We'll get into that a little bit later. Also be looking ahead to Hearts at the weekend, the season opener, curtain raiser if you will. That'll be taking place at lunchtime on Saturday at Tynecastle, and it should be a tough test for Rangers who haven't looked clever at all in the pre-season. We'll also touch on the pre-season very briefly because I don't think anybody really wants to talk about that for any amount of time. It was not nice viewing for Rangers fans. Also looking ahead to Dynamo Kiev coming up on Tuesday night, and that will be our first qualifying game, first leg in Poland, taking on Dynamo Kiev, who put 9 goals past their opponents Partizan Belgrade over the 2 legs of the previous round, so that's going to be a meaty one. Also be looking at James Tavernier. Is the captain going to stay for one more year? That rhymed, and I don't mind. I suppose we should start with the pre-season shambles. That didn't make for very fun viewing. I watched all the games, all the televised games anyway, the games that were on Rangers TV and whatnot, starting off with the Ajax game that was in Holland. Good to see some of the old Rangers players over there to watch that game. Obviously coming out for a nice day out, watching Ajax beat Rangers 2-1 in a game that was not exactly thrilling. Tom Lawrence with the Rangers goal. Tom Lawrence actually hasn't had too bad of a pre-season, but then again we're measuring against a lot of players who didn't look too clever out there over the summer. It's not really been awe-inspiring, to say the least. Of course, we had that big glamour friendly at Murrayfield against Manchester United. Now, it was of course a chance of Rangers having to decant to Murrayfield for the start of our campaign, really. Pretty glad that didn't come to pass, because I do not fancy going through to Edinburgh for home games. I think that would be a bit much, and I think a lot of Rangers fans wouldn't be too keen on that. I know there's a few from Edinburgh. The boy that sits next to me at Ibrox comes through from Edinburgh to watch Rangers, so I guess he'd be quite happy with it. It'd be just a short trip down the road to Murrayfield. But no, I think we all want to be playing more games at Ibrox, obviously, and we hope that gets sorted out pretty soon. But anyway, Rangers lost that game 2-0 to Manchester United. A former Rangers player, of course, Amad Diallo, popped up with a lovely goal that Jack Butland couldn't do too much about, to be honest, and Manchester United just looked very, very comfortable. They brought in the kids for the second half and they just ran rings around us basically. We just looked tired, inexplicably stodgy, no ideas, kind of toothless up front as we've been seeing all last season. Not inspiring at all. You would have thought that Rangers would be up for a game like that against big opposition, Manchester United. They've not exactly been flying high themselves down there in recent years. They've not been the great team that they once were, but they were more than enough to dispatch Rangers on the day at Murrayfield. We then went on to the midweek game, Birmingham City, down in Brum, and again it was another defeat, losing 2-1 on the night. The fans were fantastic, out in full voice, as you would expect from a travelling Rangers support, and they made a very good account of themselves, and it seems they won a few fans in the Birmingham support, which is nice, but the team didn't exactly impress. Let's just say the supporters did a better job of telling the opposition supporters what Rangers are all about, because the team on the park were trash. unfortunately, on the night. Not very good again. Nice goal from Scott Wright. Scott Wright's been getting quite a lot of minutes in the pre-season games, and I think that's a bit of a warning sign in itself, the fact that he's been so prominent. But because the way Rangers have been getting rid of so many players over the summer, it's put him kind of back to the forefront because our attacking options were quite limited at times. But he did score a good goal in that game. It was a nice move, and what can you say, it was another defeat. It wasn't a very good game at all. And then finishing off the pre-season preparations with a 4-each draw in Berlin last Saturday. It was quite an enjoyable game in terms of action, in terms of goals, excitement, but very, very big question marks being raised over the defensive capabilities of this Rangers side. Looking very, very dodgy. James Tavernier was playing the game. He hadn't been playing the previous pre-season matches. Rumoured that he was going to be making his way out of the club, and of course you want to keep yourself injury free and not get yourself any knocks that would hamper any kind of sale being done. But he looked like he'd probably been playing golf since the end of the season, because he was way off it. He was unbelievable. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about Tav and his legs have gone and it's time for him to move on and everything, but he looked pretty bad, to be honest with you. He looked even worse than usual. I think he actually chested in an own goal at one point. He was caught completely missing for another one. It wasn't nice to watch. It was not nice to watch, and we don't want to be going through that again, I don't think, for another full season. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with that. Dujon Sterling, of course, had been playing, but he picked up a knock, which was a bit of a worry, because he is our utility man, I suppose. He plays absolutely everywhere on the park, apart from in goals, and I suppose he would do that if he was asked. He'd probably be quite a decent goalie, but he picked up a knock, which was quite worrying. Hopefully it's not so serious and he can be back in contention for the game on Saturday, because I would rather James Tavernier doesn't start. We'll get into Tavernier a wee bit later on. I'm not one that absolutely needs him to get out of the club, although I have said that on a few occasions out of pure anger in the heat of the moment. I watched the other day, just the highlights popped up on YouTube of the 3-3 game at Ibrox, the Old Firm game, where Tavernier cost us a goal within like 20 seconds of the game, and I was furious. You know, I'd been softening on him because, you know, like you see Goldson going away the other day, and I thought, it's actually quite sad that you're seeing a guy who's been a decent servant. I know Goldson kind of fell away towards the end of last season, and he was eventually dropped from the team, which is something that had never happened to him before, and his confidence was just totally shattered after that. But I thought it's pretty sad to see him go the other day. I think it was right for him to go. I think it was time for him to go, but it was still pretty sad to see a long-serving Ranger leave the club. He's gone to Aris Limassol in Greece, and it was kind of giving me a wee bit of, you know, it kind of softened me up. I was thinking, Tavernier, you know, he's like, I don't think he has to absolutely leave the club, but I can't have him being a starter every week. I think that's the main point. I can't have him being in that defence week in and week out, being a first pick on that team sheet, because it's just not working. It's just not. I'm afraid it's over. You know, it's like hanging on in a relationship where you just know it's going nowhere, and yous are both wasting your time. But anyway, he did not look good in that. But that being said, he wasn't the only one that didn't look good in that game, that Union Berlin game. Defence been shocking. I think Jeff Day, the new signing at left back, he's come in to replace Borna Barisic, who departed in the summer on a free. He looked quite good going forward, but he looked very suspect in defensive positions, and to me that's exactly the same thing with James Tavernier over on the other side. He's always been far better getting forward, getting up the park, than he has been defensively. I think defensively he's got all the consistency of wet toilet paper these days, and Jeff Day over on the other side kind of mirroring that. I thought, oh my god, we can't have both these guys playing at the same time, because that's just license for any side to get down those flanks. Those two guys are not going to do anything about it. But it is early days for Jeff Day. He's a young boy. We shouldn't be too critical. I'm being critical, I know, but we shouldn't be too critical. I suppose we need to give him a chance to see what he's got. Of course, we've still got Ridvan Yilmaz there, who I like as a footballer. I just think he's maybe not physical enough. He's not big enough. The amount of times balls have been crossed over into the box and he's just like a wee boy. He's just lost. He's looking up in the sky like his balloon's floating away or something. It's just the amount of times goals have been caused by just him not being able to physically reach the ball. He's just not got the. He's just vertically challenged, as they say. But I think he is a good wee footballer, and I'd like to see him get a decent run in the team. But there is, again, we're talking defensive frailties, and that is another worry. That is another worry of many. As I said, Tom Lawrence, it was actually quite good in the pre-season, but again, is it because the other players around him weren't that good? Lawrence scored a couple of goals. Speaking of goals, the main man Dessers getting on the score sheet with a couple of goals against Union Berlin. His first one I thought was great. He took a wee touch round the keeper and hit it into it, and I'm just thinking, why doesn't he do that every week? Why doesn't he do that? Why is it chopping this way, that way, this way, that way? He just one touch, boom, round the keeper and slotted into the back of the net. Very nice wee finish. And his second one as well, he did the same thing. He was chopping this way, that way, and then just passed it through the keeper into the back of the net. See Dessers, see when it works, see when it actually comes off for him. He looks incredible. I think what you should do is just put together one of those YouTube clips of him, every goal that he scored like that, and just edit out every mistake, because for every one of those goals that he scores, he messes up about 15, 20. You know, he's so frustrating. I know there is a good footballer in there somewhere, but he's got limitations, and unfortunately, I don't think that he's going to be the man to lead us to any kind of glory this season. And it's quite concerning that Rangers haven't addressed the forward position yet. Got my fingers crossed that we've really got something up our sleeves. Of course, we added Vaclav Černý the other day from Werder Bremen. A winger, of course, not a forward. Another attacking option though. Good to see him brought in, but I think we're really, really crying out for a striker. Absolutely need to get that forward position sorted out, because I don't think I want to see another season of Dessers. You know, nothing against Dessers. I just don't want to be relying on him as a number one hitman, because missed far too many chances, man. We need somebody clinical, somebody with confidence through the roof. I'd like to see somebody with pace as well. I think Rangers have been chronically lacking in pace when it comes to the forwards over recent years. It's just been so slow, so ponderous at times. You know, we've had Morelos, of course, he was never the fastest, but especially when he would come back from Colombian jaunts, he'd come back overweight and he'd be quite stodgy and slow. And then of course we brought in Cholak, who wasn't the most mobile striker either. Didn't really have a lot of pace about him. He was quite good finishing, to be honest, and he had a decent wee bit of skill, but he was just too slow again. And then Dessers has just been like he's running through tar at times. It's just you're not gonna get anywhere with a striker that doesn't have pace. You need pace up front, some kind of cutting edge. You just can't have that slow moving attacker. It's just not going to work. So anyway, we will get onto looking at the players that have departed the club and players that we have brought in over the summer. So anyway, there have been plenty of players in and out this summer. Again, we're finding ourselves in the midst of a rebuild. It seems like every year it's got to be a rebuild, and I'm just hoping and praying that Coppin and Clement have got a better idea of a proper football player than the previous manager had, because the signings last year were not good, to say the least. We're keeping it PG here, but those signings last year, wow. So let's take a look at the transfers this summer. Players out. Sam Lammers, of course, recently left for FC Twente. He'd been over in the Dutch League, ripping it up for the last 6 months and claiming that he never got a real shake at Rangers because he was played out of position. He went over to the Dutch League and he was scoring goals for fun. Every week you would see the score lines coming in, and Lammers again, Lammers with 2 goals, Lammers with a goal, and you're just thinking, who is it? This guy's just somebody else. It can't be the Sam Lammers. But it was, and he's earned himself a move to FC Twente in the Eredivisie. A move rumoured to be worth around €2 million with add-ons. So I heard we've actually got to pay out a couple of other clubs as well, with sell-on fees that were part of his contract, so we won't be getting the full €2 million out of that, but delighted to get him off the wage bill and get him off the books, because it was never going to work for Sam Lammers at Rangers. People said, he had a great pre-season and we thought he was going to be amazing. I thought he was okay in pre-season. I thought Dessers was horrendous. I could see from the first 2 games or something, the guy's not got it. He's not going to be the man. And to be fair to Dessers, he did get, 22 goals or something like that last season, which is astonishing really, when you think of how poor he was. He's one of these guys that you criticise him, people would just say, hey, look at the stats, look at the numbers. The guy's doing well, that's a hell of a lot of goals he's scored. But if you saw the amount of chances he had, he could have had at least 30, 35, possibly more than that, if you took all those chances. Just crazy talk. Of course, Connor Goldson left the other day for a rumoured €1.78 million. He's gone to Aris Limassol. He posted a very classy message on his Instagram. He's not really one for social media, but he made a point of coming on and sending a message to the Rangers fans, because of course he's not going to get to say goodbye on the pitch with the business being done over the window. I don't think he was expecting to leave, but he's decided that it's time to go. He's probably one of the bigger earners at the club, so it's good to get him off the wage bill again. He wasn't really a priority for me as far as ones to get out of the club. I think most of the ones I wanted out of the club have actually gone, to be fair. I wouldn't have been outraged if Goldson had stayed. I don't think he's been a bad servant over the years. Certainly he had that dip in form. It was a bad dip and his confidence was really gone, and he looked like he was in his head for quite a bit of the end of the last season, and he wasn't his usual self. I don't know exactly why that was. Something obviously wasn't right with him, and he didn't look his normal self. He wasn't assured, and he was making too many mistakes. And you've got Tavernier makes mistakes every game. Getting Borna Barisic, just no confidence at all. Kind of felt for John Suter at times. He was the only one that seemed to have some kind of idea of what he was doing, but even he was forced into making mistakes because he was trying to cover everybody else's ass, because nobody else was doing their job properly in that defence. Anyway, Goldson's gone, so that's one off the wage bill. Wish him all the best for the future, of course. He's going to have a good time over there, probably just enjoy the weather and not worry about the kind of BS you get on a regular basis being part of the Rangers squad. John Lundstrom has gone to Trabzonspor in Turkey, the Super League over there. Interesting move. I did want Lundstrom off the books as well. I thought he's never been a great player. I know they had the Best on Earth song. It was kind of ironic, I suppose, because we all knew he was actually quite rubbish. And he was on big money as well, of course. The Scouse connection. Steven Gerrard brought him up here and obviously put him on a bumper contract. So it's another one that's great to get off the wage bill. I think that's a good thing to get him off. He's 30 years old, defensive midfielder. That tackle, remember that tackle he made in that last league Old Firm game, I think it was, at Parkhead? Just utter stupidity from Lundstrom, and that just summed him up. Basically, we'll always have that great memory of the goals to send us through in Europe in that fantastic Europa League run. Of course, that was a night to remember. I was there at Ibrox. The place was jumping, and we'll always have that to remember John Lundstrom by. But there was a lot of stupid things as well, and a lot of under par performances. Let's be honest. Borna Barisic also went to Trabzonspor in Turkey, so they two will be linking up there, Lundstrom and Barisic. It'll be quite interesting to see how Trabzonspor get on with those two in the team. Wonder if Barisic will get his hair done over there. See, thinning a wee bit. Turkey's well known for hair transplants and fake teeth. Maybe these guys will come back looking like absolute supermodels, who knows. Robbie McCrory, of course, left for an undisclosed fee to Kilmarnock FC, who went out of the Europa League, unfortunately. Went down on Thursday night, and they will be dropping down into the Conference League, so at least they will still have some European football to play this season. Robbie McCrory saved a penalty. I noticed that was a pretty poor penalty, truth be told, but he did save it, which is more than can be said for Jack Butland, who hasn't really saved any penalties for us over the last season. It was always something you could rely on Alan McGregor to save you a couple of penalties. He wouldn't save them all, but he saved his fair share. So when it came down to penalties, you always thought, we've got a chance of saving this one here. But Jack Butland always seems to concede penalties, unfortunately. He's a great goalkeeper actually, but when it comes to penalties, he's not really impressed. And let's be honest, Butland didn't look too clever in the pre-season games either. I know he's surrounded by absolute jobbers, but he didn't look great. Hopefully he's going to rediscover some form quick smart as we head to Tynecastle on Saturday. He'll have to deal with Shankland and the likes. Also, another goalkeeper who left was Kieran Wright. He's went out on loan to Airdrieonians in the Championship. Ryan Jack, of course, a much loved figure at Rangers. He has left the club as well on a free. Another one that I just felt, everybody loves Ryan Jack, but he just couldn't contribute. He couldn't contribute on a regular basis anymore. He seemed to be breaking down all the time. He would just get back from injury and then he would go and play. He would go join the Scotland squad, barely even play, sometimes not even play at all, come back from that injured. It was like Steve Clarke had some kind of ploy to put him on double or triple training, and he would come back to Rangers crocked from Scotland duty. Every single time he'd be crocked, and then he'd be out for 6 or 7 weeks. He'd come back, play 20 minutes for Rangers, and then he'd get crocked, and he'd be out for another 2 or 3 weeks, and then another international game would come round, and he'd go and play, or he'd go and be in the squad for that, and he'd come back crocked. It was just a never-ending circle. We never really got the best out of Ryan Jack last season, certainly not. He was missing for a large part of it. Unfortunate, because I think he really could have played a role, and we really missed that kind of player in the midfield with the kind of steel that Ryan Jack brought to the team. We didn't really have that without him. Unfortunately, we had John Lundstrom, who is not of the quality of Ryan Jack in my mind. But again, I think it was a good thing to get Jacko off the wage bill. It was certainly time for him to move on. 32 years old, and I think the time was right for him to go because he couldn't really contribute anymore. Speaking of someone else who couldn't contribute, Kemar Roof, he's left as well. 31 years old. He's on a free. I think he's without club at the moment, same as Ryan Jack. And again, same story. Guy that had all the talent in the world, he just could not get himself fit for these games. You look back at the games and you think, how different the story could have been if you had all these guys fit. We really were decimated by an unprecedented amount of injuries last season, and I think Philippe Clement had never seen anything like it in his life. The amount of players that were not available for Rangers week in and week out. Kemar Roof, again, I don't think we ever really saw the best of him. We saw some great moments, of course. You always remember that European goal for the halfway line, which is another great memory that he's going to leave us with. And he was excellent against Celtic in one of the 55 season games. I remember him just running riot, and unfortunately we never really got to see that. When the fans came back to Ibrox, we never really got to see Kemar Roof in full flow, and I think that's quite unfortunate. Again, another brilliant talent that we didn't really get the most out of, unfortunately, and he's gone. That's another one off the wage bill. All these guys that are leaving, I mean, the main thing is to free up that money. But you look at it and you think there's so much talent, and a lot of these guys are going for £0, 0 pence. Rangers have really mismanaged the whole transfer market, the whole buying and selling of players over the last few years. It's been really poor, I think. We've let far too many players go. We've kept them, so we need to learn when to sell these players. We hang on to them as if we're not going to get any better than this. We're going to have to keep him right to the end of his contract, and then by that time it's gone sour, and the guy, we just have to let them go. So you get the worst of both worlds, really. We don't get the best out of the player. The players end up getting crocked. They miss the end of the season, or their form goes right down the toilet, like Ryan Kent, and you keep them right to the end of the contract and you lose them for nothing, and you've also had a really poor season out of them as well. So it's very unfortunate. But Kemar Roof as well, another one who's offski. John McLaughlin, yeah, I think the least said about him the better. I was never a fan of John McLaughlin. I thought he looked very shaky at times. Of course, he had a disastrous game at Parkhead one time, and I think his Rangers career was really over after that. You don't come back from those ones, unfortunately. John McLaughlin, really, he looked, I don't know, at times he looked like a really quality goalkeeper. Sometimes when he would come in to deputise for Alan McGregor, I thought, this is great. We've actually got two really good goalkeepers here. The backup guy is a really safe pair of hands as well. But just after some of those games, he was never the same. And of course, I don't think the fans really forgave him. I certainly didn't myself. I'm not saying I'm any better than anyone else. I was one of his bigger critics, and I'm glad he's gone. To be honest, 36 years old, but keepers, as we know, can play on into their 40s really. But I think another one that's good to get off the books, Fabio Silva. What can we say about this guy? This guy came in with I can't even remember, what was it, 38 million or something, 30 odd million pound transfer fee over his head that had been paid from down south at Wolves, and he was not good. To put it politely, I did not really take to Fabio Silva at all. I was expecting so much more from him, and again, he's 21 years old, so he's still quite young, but man, with that kind of price tag on you, you've got to show me more, and he really didn't. He showed me a lot of the bad sides of football with some of the play acting, etc. Although I was absolutely scunnered when he went down. Remember, he went down in the box and won us a penalty in the last Old Firm game at Ibrox, and the referee actually went to book him for diving, only to watch it back on VAR and realise no, he actually was for once kicked, and he was kicked quite clearly, about knee high, and the referee was just, it was like the boy who cried wolf. He's like, that's it, I'm giving this guy a yellow card here. But anyway, in Fabio Silva, I don't think he endeared himself to the fans with some of his antics. He was doing the kind of chat shit, hand signals to the crowd and all that, keep talking about me and all that, and doing that to your own support. I can understand why you would want to do that when people are always saying all this negative stuff about you. You want to get back in their face and go, look at this. But it's never a wise move, man, because you do something good, like you score a goal to win a game, and you don't throw that in the fans' face. You use that as an opportunity to get on side with the fans. It's not, once you start fighting with the fans, I'm afraid you're on a rocky road to ruin. And Fabio Silva never really recovered from that. The fans really weren't too enamoured with some of his antics, not too enamoured with some of his performances either. He did look like he had some skill there, to be honest, but another one that never really flourished at Rangers. You see these guys coming up from England and you think, this is somebody who's been considered a talent down there. They should be coming up to Scotland and absolutely ripping it up and really putting themselves in the shop window and showing what they can do. And so often the guys come up from down south, they don't get the job done up here. It's like they realise early on they don't fancy it. Maybe the game's too physical. I don't know what it is. Maybe it can't be the weather, because the weather's the same pretty much down south. But a lot of the guys come up from England and they don't get it. They don't fancy it and they go back down there. And it'll be interesting to see what Fabio Silva does next. I think he'll probably go back to Portugal or something. Certainly didn't work out for him up here. And if you can't cut it up here, then it's not a good sign for you as far as the English Premiership is concerned. Or the Premier League, should I say. So, it'll be interesting to see anyway what happens next with him. I won't be watching it too keenly, but I will just keep a wee eye out to see how his career progresses from here, because it'll be interesting to see if he's one of these guys that starts scoring absolute screamers in La Liga or something like that, and we think, who's this guy and why didn't he show that kind of technique and skill at Glasgow Rangers? Why didn't he show that kind of appetite? He might be another one who goes over and he's scoring, goals, absolute glory goals over at one of these clubs over in Spain or Italy or something like that. Who knows? But could be one of these guys and you just be looking at it, scratching your head going, I don't know where that's come from. Another Sam Lammers maybe goes to another country and finds, this is where I want to be, and just starts banging them in for fun. Anyway, so that's all the players out, I think. Maybe been one or two more that I haven't quite caught up with yet. I know we've heard recently that Todd Cantwell has basically put in a transfer request. He wants to leave. No great surprise there, to be honest. Cantwell, oh man, this guy, you could just tell from early doors when Philippe Clement took over that Cantwell wasn't long for the club, to be honest. I think there's just been a personality clash there between they two. I don't think they get on at all. Clement came out recently in that wee press conference. Remember, he actually left the press conference and then came back as if, I forgot this wee tidbit as well. Kind of major news, but he'd forgotten about it. Maybe that's just a wee dig at Todd, thinking, I forgot about you, I better talk about you. Anyway, so he came back and he says that Cantwell had asked to leave quite a while ago. It must be early on in the window. He said he's wanting out of here. And you could tell because over the last season, Cantwell's been missing for some big games and it's, he's got an issue. There was always, look, the guy might have family problems or some kind of health issue that we don't know about and we've got no right to know about, to be honest. These guys have lives out with the football club and they're entitled to their privacy, but he always seemed to, he went missing for some big games, and I don't mean he went missing on the park. I mean he wasn't available at all for some games, and it was just said, he's got a wee issue that we'll be dealing with it. And you wonder what is that? Has he actually got some kind of issues, or has he been told, you're no coming along to this game, by the way, we don't want you at the game, you better go home and think about yourself? I don't know. I mean, that's just pure speculation on my part, but I always thought it was strange that, because I liked Cantwell, and I think on his day he was he was unplayable at times if he was really locked in on his game, but I don't know what happened. His head just went out of it, and it does make me think to back when we signed him in the first place. I thought it was kind of an eye opener for me. I was like, wow, we're getting this guy for Norwich, Todd Cantwell. I was kind of shocked that we were getting him, and obviously there must have been a reason that Norwich didn't want to keep him, and I think we're probably finding out now that he's got some kind of, I don't want to say attitude problem or something. I guess he's kind of a temperamental guy. There's a lot of Rangers dads don't like him because he's all his social media stuff and all that. I've kind of grown up. I grew up with one foot in the pre-internet age, and they're kind of my teens growing up in early days of the internet, and I've obviously lived through the whole social media revolution and stuff. So it's not really something that bothers me at all when I see players going on social media. It's sometimes kind of you kind of raise your eyebrow and think, why is he going on and saying that when we've just come off the back of a bad result or something, and players don't seem to care. I think that's one thing that the fans really can't stand, when it looks like the players just moved on. They've lost a game, it's a crucial game, and now they're playing golf or they're poolside in Ibiza or something like that, and it just looks like they didn't care, that they just ruined everybody's week basically. And I think the fans don't like that, because we've got to remember, these guys aren't family. They're not Rangers through and through, the vast majority of them. They're professional footballers who are playing football for money. They're mercenaries, so to speak. Don't want to be harsh on them. I'm sure that they've got a lot of team spirit and everything, and a lot of them do buy into the club, and a lot of them do know what it means. But you've got to remember, these guys are just professionals. It's like saying somebody had a nightmare at Morrison's or something. You had a terrible shift at Aldi. How dare you go home and just crack open a few beers and watch a film on Netflix, or get a carry out, or get a takeaway for the Chinese or something like that? How dare you enjoy yourself? You've had an absolute shiter of a shift here. But you've just got to remember, these guys do have their life outside, and of course they're all entitled to use social media. Some managers are quite militant on not having players go on there and speak their mind and say controversial things or whatever. But I think we're also seeing a kind of evolution of that as well, as far as the managers are concerned. Philippe Clement has obviously got a team that do social media for him, and they put up videos from him, pictures from him, and comments and stuff from Philippe Clement. So he's obviously not adverse to players going on to Instagram or whatever and putting their wee stories on there or making wee comments on there or whatever, because Clement's doing it as well. He understands the power of the marketing power of social media and how you can communicate directly with fans and stuff. I think with a lot of footballers, especially young guys, they don't realise the kind of backlash they're going to get when they put stuff on social media and the fans don't agree with it, or the fans are fed up. If a fan thinks you've had a bad game over the weekend and you put on something showing that you're enjoying yourself and you're quite happy, the fans absolutely hate that, and they will get right on top of you and get right down your neck. And it's, I don't know, but I think we had the same kind of thing with Ryan Kent before. Casper, was it? His brother? I can't remember. And people just thought they were kind of weird, and I think that turned a lot of the Rangers dads against them. Just, they don't like MD being different, to be honest, and they don't like when people have lives that are not Glasgow Rangers, morning, noon and night. It's got to be, we expect these guys to be absolutely immersed in the club and the cause like we all are as fans, and of course they're not, because they're just professionals making money. So you've got to give them a bit of leeway there. But anyway, Todd Cantwell, he said he wants to go. he's not left yet. We've not had word of any bids coming in for him. Of course, there's still a month to go. Talking about the signings and stuff, you need to be done quicker because we'll get European deadline, which has just passed there. But we've got another chance to add another couple of players along the way. You're allowed to add in a couple of players to the squad, so it remains to be seen if Rangers make more signings. That we would need those slots to add people in. Hopefully we do, because I really feel we're woefully inept up front. We really need to sort that out. A couple of other areas as well, I suppose, that we need strengthening in. We've not heard anything. There's nothing solid about Cantwell leaving so far. I think we have seen the last of him, to be honest, in a Rangers shirt, and it'd be interesting as well to see where he goes next. And if he has similar problems there that he's had here. But as I say, on his day when he was locked in, I thought Cantwell was a really good player, and that's why it always frustrated me these times that he just wasn't in the squad for some big games, some European games and stuff. He just wasn't there, and there was no word that he'd been injured or he'd picked up a knock or something. It was just, Todd's got an issue, he's not going to be involved. I think that left a lot of supporters like myself kind of scratching their heads, going, why is one of our better players not playing in this game when it's a crucial game? Anyway, if he doesn't want to be here, that's fine, he can go. I don't know how long he's got remaining on his contract. Hopefully we can get a few bob for him, because we can't have all these guys just walking out the door for nothing. I think the fact that he's came and gave a transfer request would indicate he's still got years left on his contract and he wants out of it, because otherwise he would have just walked already, wouldn't he? So that's what settled that one. Right, now let's move on to the players we've actually brought in. Again, it's been a big we over this window. It seems to me that we haven't brought in that many, but when you look at the actual squad, we have actually brought in quite a few. Maybe it's because they haven't really addressed key areas that I want addressed, like the forward position. I don't know if I've mentioned already in this pod, I want the forward position sorted out, but we haven't really addressed that. But we have made a few signings. Of course, Mohamed Diomande came in. He was with us last season, of course, for the last half of the season. He looked very good, I would say. Well, maybe not very good. He looked good. He looked good to very good. You know, some games he looked okay, and some games he looked very, very good indeed. Again, another young boy. He's only 22 years old. He's certainly got bags of talent there. In the pre-season, he's been one of the few shining lights. His partnership with another signing, Connor Barron, has been one of the few highlights of the pre-season. I think that looks like there's something there that could develop into a wonderful relationship in the middle of the park for Rangers. Mo Diomande, it's a €5 million transfer fee from Nordsjælland. So, we had him on loan. I think there was an obligation to buy, so we knew we would be getting him, and I think that is a good investment. Rangers they haven't done great business as far as I'm concerned over the years with some of these signings, but this boy looks like he may be a Diomande in the rough, so to speak. He could be a real positive. You don't want to look too far ahead and think about money you're going to get in for a player. Let's get some trophies first. I'd like to get some good performances out of him and get some good results out of the team with him in it. I don't want him leaving too soon, but you never know with the current financial situation, etc. Maybe the assets will have to be moved on sooner than we would like, especially when we're getting rid of all these boys on frees. Another boy that's come in is Hamza Igaman, or Igamani. I'm not sure how that's pronounced yet. We'll need to wait and get the official word. I've heard every Rangers podcast under the sun giving different pronunciations of that boy's name. But anyway, he came in from FAR Rabat. Or is it Far Rabat? I don't know. I'm not too au fait with that particular team and that particular league. But obviously Niels Coppen and Philippe Clement are, because they've put down €2.36 million for this boy. He is a centre forward. I keep saying we've not addressed the centre forward. I think because they stated when he came in that he's one for the future, i.e. he won't be the main man up top this season. So that leaves me wondering, what are you going to do about that up top position if it's not going to be this guy? As I said, I don't know anything about the guy. I'm not going to be one of these guys that comes on and lies and says you know all about him because you've watched one of these YouTube compilation clips or whatever. I don't know anything about him. We've not seen him. He's not been fit enough to start the pre-season games, unfortunately. I would have liked to get a look at him, but we've not been able to see anything of him so far. So he'll probably start on Saturday. Jeffy has come in at left back. Is it Jeffy or Hefty? Again, Rangers podcast. I've been doing my nutting with all the different pronunciations. I'm going to call him Jeffy. From Fluminense in Brazil. You always think when you're signing a Brazilian player, wow, this is big business now. This is a real deal. We're getting a Brazilian in here. Now, as I said, we watched him in the pre-season and I don't know. He looked good getting forward, actually. Like those Brazilians, man. It was always a Brazilian way, wasn't it? You score 2 or 3 goals, we'll score 5 or 6 goals. Jeffy just seems to be like that kind of kamikaze. Guy's going to get up the park and get involved in attacks and then leave us woefully exposed at the back, which is a bit of a concern. He was only 800k, so again, looks to be a decent bit of business. He's only 20 years old. Hopefully there'll be some sell-on value there. I'd really like to see him hit the ground running when the league proper starts. That left back position, Borna Barisic, again, a guy that was a decent servant, but over the last couple of seasons, after he had that injury, remember he had that knee injury or whatever it was in the internationals, and he never looked the same player after that. He would constantly get to the halfway line, turn back, give it back to the centre back, or give it back to Lundstrom, get it back from Lundstrom, move forward a couple of inches, come back, give it back to the centre back. It was brutal, absolutely brutal to watch. So I'm hoping that Jeffy can give us some excitement over on that side and really add to our attacking threat down the wing, but also we really need him to be a decent left back, because that is your job. If you're a left back, your primary job is to defend. We can't have, like I said earlier, Jeffy on one side bombing forward, Tavernier bombing forward on the other side, and just gaping holes at the back. It's just not what I'm looking for at all. When the season proper starts, Connor Barron came from Aberdeen on a free transfer. I believe there will be a fee decided by tribunal, I think, at some point. Shouldn't be more than about 800,000, I would think, for Connor Barron. 21 years old, very, very promising young player, of course, and he's bringing a bit of steel to the midfield. As I said, I like his link up with Mo Diomande. I think that could be the start of something special there. Connor Barnes get the steel, he likes winning the ball back, getting tackles in, and he looks like something Rangers have needed for a long time, a really quality battling midfielder, and of course Diomande being the ball player. So if you can get Barron winning the ball, getting it to Diomande setting up the attack, that would be fantastic. It's looked decent in the pre-season games, but as I said, we're just so toothless in the attack that all the good work that Mo and Connor Barron were doing, it was really not really coming to much because of just how toothless we are up top. But anyway, he's a good signing. I'm very pleased to get that one over the line. Liam Kelly comes back from Motherwell, of course, for another spell at Rangers, and he's going to be a backup goalkeeper basically. He's not going to be playing games ahead of Jack Butland, I wouldn't imagine, unless he gets a cup run, but I don't think Clermont is really too keen on swapping around his keepers for cup competitions. But I think Liam Kelly will be very able deputy. They made some really good saves actually in the pre-season. Some of those results could have been a lot worse. When Liam Kelly played, he did look quite decent, to be honest. Clinton Enciala, he did play one of the pre-seasons as well. 20 years old from Milan. He came in a free transfer. Hopefully another good bit of business. If we can punt him on for some cash somewhere down the line, that would be great. He's a centre back, and it'd be interesting to see if he gets a start at Tynecastle, although Rangers made another signing just yesterday that may keep him out of the team. We don't know who the team's going to be, to be honest, for that game at Tynecastle. Plenty of options to look at as far as the defence is concerned anyway. Vaclav Cherny coming in, 26 years old. He came in from Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga and he's on loan. Pretty good signing. I think everyone must have seen his goal at Parkhead for Ajax, a winning goal late in the game, and I think most Rangers fans have already taken to him just on the basis of goal he scored for a completely different team. But I'm looking forward to seeing this guy. He's a right winger. We need a proper right winger. Not had a real good one for a while, and I'm hoping this guy is the answer. I would love to see him get off to an absolute flyer on Saturday. I think he's one of the ones that I would imagine would go right into the team. Scott Wright, of course, has been used heavily in the pre-season, so maybe Scott Wright will keep him out of the team if Cherny's not quite ready to go. But I really hope we see him starting the game at Tynecastle. Robbie Fraser, the left back, young 21-year-old, he's come up to the team from the Rangers B, so decent young player. I've seen him in flashes last season and he looked very competent, I would say. Looked quite good actually at some points. Maybe we'll see more of him this season. Quite looking forward to seeing what he's got to offer. Again, a left back, so if Ridvan gets injured again and Jeffrey's not doing the business, we might see more of Robbie Fraser this season. Jose Cifuentes, a guy that I'd completely forgotten about. He has come back from his loan from Cruzeiro. And I don't know what's going on with him at all. I think there was rumours of him getting a move for big bucks, which would be absolutely fantastic if we can get him out, because he's another one who does not look like he's Rangers. I don't want to say Rangers class, that's because we've got a lot of players who aren't class and he's obviously on a par with them, but I just don't think he's a fit for Rangers at all. I actually didn't want him to be signed when the deal was being done. It was a very protracted transfer deal that went on last summer when Beale was bringing in all these guys, and Cifuentes one seemed to go on because his contract was running at LAFC, was it? I don't know. His contract was running until December basically, and we were wanting to get him in the summer, and boy should we have left him there because it was not good. It was not good. Another waste of money. But if we get money back for him, that would be absolutely amazing. It would be quite mind-blowing, to be honest. Yanis Hadji's come back from his loan to Alaves and he's been making noises. His agent's been talking about him finding another team. Of course, Hadji featured for Romania in the recent Euros and he didn't really do that well, to be honest, but I guess that's not really on him. International football is a whole different ball game. I think he will be another one that's out the door because, again, I just don't think he fits, unfortunately. I always liked Hadji. He's 25 years old now. That's I thought he was younger than that, but 25, he really should be further ahead, I think. Of course, he'd went to Alaves, and by all accounts, he didn't really set the heather alight over there, which is unfortunate. But maybe if we can get a few bucks for him, that would be nice. And of course, before we forget, we should say as well, Oscar Cortez, the Colombian winger, has returned to Rangers for a second loan spell from RC Lyon in France. Of course, he was with Rangers for the last 6 months of the season. Unfortunately, he only played 7 games before the dreaded Rangers injury curse struck and basically ruled him out for the remainder of the last season. And he was quite a promising looking player when he came in. I think he raised a lot of eyebrows. People were quite happy to have a kind of positive, energetic, attacking force on that left hand side. And when the Colombian got crocked, we just felt that was just our luck basically. That's just the Rangers way in recent years, unfortunately. All these players, as soon as they show any kind of promise, they seem to get struck down by a bolt of lightning, and he was missing for the end of last season, which who knows what he could have done in that time. Anyway, we've got him back with an obligation to buy next summer, I think, from RC Lyon, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. He'll be one I'll be hoping will be starting tomorrow at Tynecastle. And the big news yesterday, Robin Proper coming in for a rumoured €2 million from FC20. Of course, Sam Lammers went the other way, and the FC20 fans are not too happy about Robin Proper coming to Glasgow, but I think it's a great signing for Rangers. I think it could be just what we need. He sounds solid at the back. FC20 had a very impressive season last year, and they were defensively very sound, and of course Proper a big part to play in that, so I think he could be a real get. You'd be wondering if he goes right into the starting lineup tomorrow at Tynecastle. Of course, that 12:30 kick-off and the curtain raiser. A lot of players, sometimes it's taking a risk putting in too many players who've never played with each other before. There's no understanding there, they've not had time to gel. It's just the way the transfer window has gone, unfortunately, this season. As Philippe Clement had said, that a lot of business gets done late in the windows when there's a Euros or a World Cup over the summer, then the business tends to get backloaded. So we're still trying to figure things out. We've played through that pre-season there with what was really the remnants of last season's side, and they didn't look too good, we'll have to say, but we're starting to see the additions coming through now in drips and drabs. Vaclav Cherny, of course, coming in last week, and now we're getting this guy Proper. Don't know too much about him. I think he's, from all accounts, he's pretty solid. He's 2-footed. Just hope there's not too many 2-footed challenges going in, but he's 2-footed. He can can play in the left or right side of defence as a centre-back, left or right, but it remains to be seen. But hopefully, as I said, I'd like to see him get a start tomorrow, because I think defensively we've looked dodgy over the pre-season, and I think Hearts will be quite fancying their chances, even though they had a worse pre-season than us. Let's be honest, they got some absolute drubbings in there, but they will fancy their chances against Rangers. I mean, if you can't be up for one of the big Glasgow clubs coming to your gaff on the opening day of the season with all eyes on you, then really what are you doing playing football? You just know that Shankland's going to be in and about it, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I'm looking forward to getting a look at some of these guys in real proper competition. Basically, everybody always says, oh, pre-season doesn't really mean anything, this and that, but it kind of does, because you get a wee idea of what's working, what's not working, who's ready to go, who's not ready to go. Anyway, so I think that kind of concludes the transfer dealings. We've really rattled the arse out of that, and this podcast is dragging on now, so we'll just move on briefly to the problems with the Steel and the Copeland Road stand. I'm not going to spend too much time in it. I think everybody's been sick to the back teeth of this whole debacle that's been unfolding over the summer. Of course, the Steel was delayed coming over from Asia, and looks like Rangers won't be back at Ibrox for quite some time. A boy put a drone up the other week. I don't know if you saw that. A boy put a drone up to look and see what was going on, and the answer was the square root of FA. To be honest, there was nothing happening because the guys couldn't do any work because the materials weren't there. So, I mean, what can you expect? They just had to wait until the materials could get there. But we've heard that one of the shipments had arrived. It arrived the other week. It was coming up from down south, Southampton, I think it was, and hopefully work can resume fairly quickly, and we can get those other two shipments, because I'm not keen on going to Hampden at all. I mean, I don't like Hampden, basically. You like going there. I like going there when, obviously, if you go there in a usual domestic season, you're only going to Hampden because you're in the later stages of a cup competition, basically. So you go there because there's excitement and you get behind the team and you get a chance of winning silverware. But the idea of going there and playing, your Motherwells and your Ross Counties in a bog standard league game is really not all that appealing at all. I will be there, of course, but I don't know. I think a lot of Bears might give it a buy. A lot of people that can't really get there. This logistics of, the public transport isn't always the best. ScotRail at the best of times, quite dodgy. So a lot of fans might be just giving it a buy and watching it on the telly, because of course these two games will be televised. No details released as of yet, but I think they're forthcoming. I've looked through all the listings and nobody's got it listed yet. I thought it might have been on Premier Sports or something, but obviously they didn't know what the games were going to be, so they needed official word from UEFA to get that set up. So hopefully we will know over the next few days that those games are going to be televised, and you can just go and watch it down the pub if you don't fancy going to Hampden. Of course, the first game we will be playing at Hampden will be Motherwell, a week on Saturday at 3 o'clock kickoff for that one, and then after that, of course, the big game against Dynamo Kiev, the Ukrainian side who smashed 9 goals past their opponents Partizan Belgrade over the 2 legs. So nothing to worry about there, guys. I'm sure we'll get through that, no problem at all. And the Ukrainians are licking their lips at the prospect of coming up against this Rangers defence. They think it's going to be another goal bonanza for them, but hopefully we can put paid to those kind of hopes and quash their European dreams. But it seems unlikely, to be honest, at this point. We can but hope. I mean, without hope, what is there really? James Tavernier, of course, has been the subject of a lot of speculation over the summer. The captain, will he stay, will he go? There was talk of him going to Saudi Arabia, of course. There's always links with the likes of Steven Gerrard over there, of course, could be looking to take Tavernier over. Tavernier, I don't know if any offers came in for him, we've not heard anything about that, but it looks like he's going to be staying. Rangers put out a wee piece with a wee captain's pep talk the other day, so that would lead me to believe that he's staying, and they're trying to just softly, gently suggest that to the fans, that you shouldn't get your hopes up if you want this guy to leave, because he's here and he's going to be staying for his 10th season, so as he gets his testimonial at the end of it. Like I said, I spoke about him earlier. He's not one that I absolutely need to leave the club. I'm not forcing him out the door, but I think that the issue is he's obviously one of the big earners at the club, and to be honest, I can't have him starting every week. I don't want him to be starting that often at all. I think he should be a backup player at this stage in his career. I think Dujon Sterling has to get a run at that right back position and a chance to make that position his own, and Tavernier should be seen, sparingly coming on maybe for 20 minutes at the end of games or whatever, maybe used in some cup games, but I don't think we can go on with Tavernier in the defence because it's just too much of a liability at this stage. He's been a great servant. It would be good to see him get his testimonial. I do think he's deserved it over the piece. Some fantastic moments, of course, some excellent goals. He's been really steady with the penalties, etc. And he has been, as I said, a good servant, and I think he does deserve a testimonial. He's put in a lot of service over the years. We've not had as many trophies as we would like. Can't really lay that at his door. He has tended to be head and shoulders above a lot of the players around him over his years at Ibrox, and the failure can't really be on his shoulders, although he is historically kind of tied to all that because he is the captain. You wear that captain's armband and you have a little bit extra responsibility when it comes to fans looking at results and lack of trophies, etc. They do kind of point the finger at Tavernier, and I guess that is, some of it is kind of deserved, but you have to bear in mind as well the amount of problems that Rangers have had off the park during Tavernier's time. We haven't exactly been flush with cash, so he hasn't had the chance to be as decorated as some previous Rangers captains maybe, because they've had just an embarrassment of riches around them, some great players around them, and Tavernier has had to work with a lot of dross at times, we'll have to say. Is he going to go? I thought it looks like he's going to stay. It looks like he's possibly going to be starting tomorrow at Tynecastle, because Dujon Sterling picked up that knock. And I'm thinking Clement might just keep Dujon Sterling on ice for the European game on Tuesday. I think that might be a wise decision, but Tavernier did not look good at all last week. He looked way off the pace. Of course, he's not really been involved, so he's not really up to speed. I mean, Hearts are going to look at that and see that as a weak link, and they're going to try to get into him, I suppose. We'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, you're sitting here with concerns about him, but he could pop up tomorrow with a screamer of a free kick or an excellent penalty and he will be laughing at the end of the day, so you never know. You just got to keep your fingers crossed. Speaking of Hearts, the whole Shankland thing, Rangers have been linked with Shankland now for a while, a few windows. Certainly wanted him in January. I think in January it would have been just the kind of signing we needed to push us over the line. I just think we just didn't have the money to do it, because if we did have the money it would have been a good investment. I think it would be one of those ones where you put money down on the table and yes, you're taking a bit of a financial hit, but it's for the greater good. It's for, getting that automatic Champions League spot, because if we got that, we would have a lot of money on the table right now, guaranteed money, that we don't have right now because we're going to have to jump through hoops and do the whole qualifying thing, and it's looking extremely difficult for us to be able to do that this year. So it would have been ideal to have that money guaranteed and going straight into the Champions League, of course a new format this season. It would be interesting to be in there. You want to, of course, Rangers were in the first ever Champions League and did very well. In fact, if it weren't for shenanigans, who knows what might have happened in that campaign. But it would be good to be part of this new look Champions League campaign. Of course, 4 home games. Where would we play them? Would we be back at Ibrox at that point? Would we be still at Hampden? I've heard if you start a competition at a certain ground, you can't move midway through, like the group stage or whatever. You can't play 2 of the games and then move back to Ibrox. If we started playing them at Hampden, you'd have to play all of them at Hampden for sporting integrity, that phrase that pops up from time to time. But I don't know. Anyway, I think, as I said, Shankland, if we'd put that money down, it might have pushed us over the line, because Rangers were looking quite good at the turn of the year, and I think we just needed a little bit more up top to get the job done. And I think Shankland, for me, Shankland is a January signing. He's one of those ones, really comes in and peps you up and gets you closer to your goal and gets you a few goals, to be honest, because he's obviously deadly in front of goal, and hopefully we don't see that tomorrow at Tynecastle. Would you rather have him up top ahead of Dessers? I would say yes, every day of the week, but it remains to be seen what's going to happen there. I think Stevie Naismith said during the week there's been no approach from Rangers, there's been no bid put in, so I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know if it's going to be one we're going to go for later in the window, or maybe Clement has identified other targets that he would prefer that we're still working on in the background. But we really do need to address that role, because it's key, absolutely key for me. We need to be more clinical up top, and Dessers is just, he's got skill, he does have a degree of skill there, but he's just not clinical clinical enough. Unless he has a massive turnaround this season, he's just not clinical enough to get that job done. And of course, I'll just round it up there because we're dragging on a wee bit. Don't worry, these podcasts won't be running this long in the future. This is just kind of bumper edition because it's the start of the season with a lot of things to cover over the pre-season and over the transfer window, etc. All the ins and outs that have been going on, but they won't be this long in the future. So we're back in action tomorrow. What are you thinking, troops? Who would your starting lineup be? I think the goalkeeper position is one that kind of picks itself. Be interesting to see who starts in the centre back roles. Would it be John Souttar and Proper maybe, or Proper and Balogun, or John Souttar and Ben Davies? Who knows? Maybe Enciala will get a shout. I doubt it. I think he'll go with probably two of the guys that have been there for a while. Maybe Proper will come on at some point, but I'd like to see Proper start. Just get him in there. If he's quality, get him in there. I don't like this idea of you've got to wait weeks and months to get guys up to speed. If he's a football player, he's probably played his pre-season with the FC20. He should be up to speed and he should be raring to go. So I would just get him in right from the start, to be honest. Sterling, of course, at right back. I would have him in there ahead of Tavernier if he's fit. If he's not fit, then Tav is going to have to play, unfortunately. Over on the left side, would you start Ridvan? Is Ridvan crocked again? I don't know. I hope not. I think he's available. Would you start Ridvan or Jefty? Don't know. Again, it's going to be interesting to see what the manager goes with on the day. The midfield roles, I think we've established that Diomande and Connor Barron looking pretty good in the pre-season, and I think they will show us a bit more tomorrow at Tynecastle. Cortez, you would like to see on the left, and Vaclav Cherny hopefully starts on the right. Up front, we've obviously not got too many options. I can imagine we're just going to go with Dessers. It's going to be Dessers, and hopefully he gets a goal. It'd be great if he gets off to a great start, gets a couple of goals in the first game, and we're all kind of laughing. It's always kind of ironic cheer when he actually scores goals, but it'd be good to see him net a couple, at least one tomorrow, and show that he means business this season. But as I've said a dozen times on this pod, he's not the answer for me up top going forward. We do need to address that, and hopefully we will be able to address that. And great news that came in this morning, great news in my opinion anyway, that Philippe Clement has extended his contract. He's signed for 4 years at Rangers, so he's obviously here for the long haul, and I think that's absolutely what Rangers need. We've needed consistency. We can't keep chopping and changing every October or November. You know, we're a couple of months into the season, had a few dodgy results. It looks like the season's gotten away from us. We're sacking another manager. That's got to end. I think this guy, he has shown last season what he could do with a team that was decimated, it's totally depleted with all the injury concerns, etc. He was hamstrung from day one, and he did very well, and it fell away at the end because we just ran out of steam. But he showed me in that period of time that he does have something about him. People criticise maybe he's a bit too inflexible when it comes to his tactics, doesn't really look to have much of a plan B, but I think I'm quite confident going forward with Philippe Clement if he stays. It looks like he's staying for this 4 years coming up. Who knows in football? You never know. But it obviously was linked to Belgium, and it'd be good to just keep a hold of him for now, because who else would you get in? I mean, there's really nobody I'd fancy at all to come in and do a better job. You know, I don't think Pep Guardiola is going to be available anytime soon, so we'll make do with our own baldy manager. That'll do us just fine. So I hope you've enjoyed the pod, and I hope you enjoy the game tomorrow. Remember, 12:30 kickoff. It's live on Sky from Tynecastle, Hearts versus Rangers, and hoping for all the best from the Rangers. So thanks for listening, like and subscribe for more, and on the Rangers.